live. We're live. We did it. All right, let's do it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are with our last matchup of round 2. So we have Whoosh versus the Faithful Friend. And let me see if I can fix our lighting a little bit better. Maybe I'll just turn off the lamp and the natural light will flow through. I'm going live, trying this a different way today. So we will just have to see how it works out. And hopefully it works great. So I'm Mr. A, if you haven't been here before. So welcome back if you have been here before. We are now on the last matchup of round 2. And then we move on to the final 4. So of our March Madness of picture books, I know now it's April. Now we're actually on spring break, but we will finish this week and we will crown a champion this week. So we will have a video every day this week. I might do it live just like this and then save those videos and see how that uploads. So we will go ahead and get started. Also, don't forget to vote. Make sure you vote in the comments of who the winner is. That way we can crown our champion sooner. Thanks, cuz. Appreciate that. My cousin's commenting on here. Go check out Timo and his YouTube channel. He's got like over 3,000 subscribers. Go check him out. Anyway, so let's get on with our last matchup of round 2. And we'll see who our winner is. And then we will have our final 4 announced tomorrow. So all final 4 will start tomorrow. And I will announce all 4 winners at the same time. So go vote. All right, we're going to start with the Faithful Friend, since that one is the first one on our bracket. And I'm going to try to zoom in on the book a little better for you guys. All right. So The Faithful Friend by Robert D. Souci. And obviously this one won. I see it's a level 5.2 AR. So you students taking AR tests, make sure that you are logging on to AR and taking those tests, because most of these books have been AR books. This one is a little bit longer, so I will try to move through as quickly as I can here. In the last century, on the island of Martinique in the Caribbean Sea, there lived a man named Monsieur de Force, who owned a sugar plantation. His wife had died giving birth to their only child, a boy named Clement. Monsieur de Force hired a French-born widow who lived in the nearby village of Les Vachelin to be his son's nurse and tutor. She had given birth to her own son, Hippolyte, only a few days earlier. At Monsieur de Force's insistence, Hippolyte was raised in a plantation house with Clement. The boys grew into handsome young men, tall, lithe, and sharp-witted. Clement's brown skin was the rich color of old bronze, while Hippolyte's fair skin was tanned by the tropical wind and sun. From the first, they were as close as brothers. One day, Clement showed his friend a small painting of a beautiful young woman. He said, "This is Pauline, the niece of Monsieur Zobacat, who lived in Macuba. I have fallen in love with her picture. Come with me tomorrow to visit her, so I can ask her uncle for her hand in marriage." At first, Hippolyte cautioned his friend. "A painting can tell you only part of the story. You may arrive at Macuba and find she is sharp-tongued and dull-witted." Then he lowered his voice and added, "Some say that her uncle is a Quimbossier, a wizard. There may be danger in this adventure." But when he saw that he could not change Clement's mind, he clasped his friend's hand and agreed to go. They were so close that the happiness of one was the happiness of both. They set out the next day. Because the sun was hot, they walked slowly north along the coast road. Everywhere, vivid blossoms blazed against the bright green of sugarcane and banana and pineapple fields, and the deep green of the distant mountains. It was a perfect setting for the young men's high spirits. But near Macuba, their joyful mood was broken when they discovered the body of an old beggar in the shade of a banana grove. They had passed by when Hippolyte suddenly said, "It is wrong to ignore that poor man. We must go back and give him a proper burial." Though Clement was eager to see Pauline, he agreed. At a nearby fishing village, they bought a simple coffin and arranged with the priest at the church to bury the unfortunate man in the little seaside cemetery. In a quieter mood, they reached the vast plantation of Monsieur Zobacat, the uncle and guardian of Pauline. Bonjour, Missy. Good day, sir, Clement said politely when he met the master of the house. Monsieur Zobacat was a large man who stroked his thick mustache thoughtfully and offered Clement a guarded Bonjour, mon fils. Good day, my son. At that moment, Pauline hurried outside, eager to meet their guests. To both young men, she seemed cheerful as the morning sun, more beautiful than any painting. She was also lively and witty and clearly delighted to meet the two friends. Clement, hopelessly in love, could only gaze at Pauline. Hippolyte talked of their journey, omitting only the sad incident of the beggar's funeral. All the time, he noticed the bright, loving smile that Pauline had gave Clement and the dark looks Monsieur Zobacat cast on his friend. Out of respect for Clement's father, whom he knew slightly, Monsieur Zobacat invited the young man to dinner. He would have sent Hippolyte to dine in the kitchen with the servants, but Clement and Pauline insisted that he remain. Unhappily, Monsieur Zobacat ordered his servants to set the table for 4. They dined off fine china and silver brought from the island of France. They ate their fill of spicy fish soup, sweet clams, sausage, stuffed land crabs, red beans and rice cakes, and fresh fruit. Monsieur Zobacat was cold but polite during the meal. But when Clement proposed to Pauline and she accepted, he grew furious. I forbid any such thing. I have decided that we will travel to France, he said. There you will marry a man I choose for you. But Pauline was a spirited young woman. No, dear uncle, she said, I am of age, and while I thank you for all that you have done for me, I must follow my heart. At this, Monsieur Zobacat swept his dishes off the table. Then go! None of you is welcome any longer. But have care. He thundered, his heavy mustache quivering and his dark eyes flashing red like burning charcoal. You are not yet married. Let's get you a better view here. Though the hour was late, the 3 young people set out from Monsieur Zobacat's mansion. The moon hung full as a lamp to light their path. Pauline wept at her uncle's hard-heartedness. Clement comforted his love, assuring her, My father will welcome you as his daughter when we return to Lavaclin, and he will make peace with your uncle. Feeling better, the young woman began to smile. She and Clement talked and laughed together until weariness made all 3 companions stop to rest. They lay down to sleep under the trees, but the warm night kept Hippolyte awake, and he was troubled to note the murmur of the insects and the sigh of the wind in the treetops had died away. In the unnatural silence, he heard the sound of drums. Tam, 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 tam. While the others slept, he followed the path that led deeper into the forest. The drumming led Hippolyte to a small clearing. There he saw 3 tall, beautiful women whose skin gleamed like polished ebony. One beat upon a small drum. Hippolyte remained hidden when he heard the first woman say, The pretty girl and the handsome boy are asleep in the grove. The second said, Now we must do what Quimbossier Zobacat summoned us to do. Begin the spell, the third commanded. At this, Hippolyte grew frightened. He guessed that these creatures were zombies. He prayed that they would not discover him before he could learn what wickedness they had planned. The first zombie knelt beside the little stream, cupped water in her hands, and gave some to her companions. Tomorrow morning, she said, the couple will come upon a brook. The second zombie said, The girl will say that she is thirsty, and the boy will give her water. Then he will take the drink himself. The third said, They will die. Then she cried, If anyone hears this and repeats this, he will turn into stone from the soles of his feet to his knees. The zombie slipped away and into the shadows, while Hippolyte returned to keep watch over his friends. When the others awoke at sunrise, Hippolyte dared not to tell them what he had seen. He only knew that he must prevent the evil from happening. Soon the travelers saw a stream, and Pauline asked for a drink, but Hippolyte ran ahead and muddied the water. He brought the young woman some dirty water in his hand, saying, You would surely fall ill if you took even a drop. Though all were thirsty, they continued on their way. When the sun was high in the sky, they paused to rest, because the day had grown unbearably hot. While his friends drowsed, leaning against each other in the green shade, Hippolyte anxiously searched the surrounding forest for signs of danger. Where the trees grew thickest, he spied the 3 zombies. They were passing a mango, one to the other. The boy and girl will escape this time. Will not escape this time, said the first one. Soon they will find a mango tree beside the path, said the second. They will each eat one and die, said the third. She squeezed the fruit in her hand until the juice ran between her fingers. If anyone hears and tells them what he has heard, he will be turned to stone from the soles of his feet to his chest. Then the zombies hurried into the forest. Returning, Hippolyte found his friends awake and eager to be on their way. Both said how hungry they had felt, though Hippolyte pointed out the abundance of papayas, cherries, lemons, limes, and bananas all around. Pauline insisted that only a mango would satisfy her, and Clement said the same. Hippolyte dared not to tell what he had heard. Soon they came to a huge tree laden with ripe mangoes. While his companions cried out delightedly, Hippolyte ran ahead. He plucked a fruit, pretended to bite it, then threw it away in disgust. Do not taste these, he cried. They are poison. Indeed, his hands were blistered from merely touching the deadly fruit. Though Clement and Pauline were disappointed, they ignored their hunger, and the 3 continued on their way. The nearer they came to the home, the hotter the day became. While the others sat and fanned themselves beside the road, Hippolyte restlessly wandered to the nearest forest path. Not far away, he found the zombies, passing a serpent from one to the other. When the pretty couple enters the house, said the first, their fate is sealed. On their wedding night, said the second, a serpent will sting them to death. And if anyone knows and speaks a word, said the third, he will turn to stone from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Then she kissed the serpent and led her companions away into the forest. When the travelers reached the plantation, Monsieur de Force was overjoyed at the news of the engagement of his son to Pauline. He promised to make amends with her uncle. Indeed, Monsieur Zobequet came for a visit and seemed to forgive the couple. He even agreed to attend their wedding, but Hippolyte saw the poisonous looks behind his pleasant words. He was certain that the man still had planned to carry out his vengeance. By day, Hippolyte was always at his friend's side. At night, he kept watch for the serpent the zombies had threatened, but he saw none. Nevertheless, he knew that the greatest danger awaited Paulina and Clement on their wedding night. On the day of the wedding, Clement looked more handsome than ever, and Pauline was a vision in a white satin gown sewn with diamonds, diamond-studded satin slippers, and a veil of antique French lace that had belonged to Clement's mother. The house and gardens were filled with guests who had come from miles around. But while the others made merry, Hippolyte sharpened his cutlass. That night he hid himself in the burial chamber. As soon as the couple entered the room, Hippolyte saw a long, dark, speckled ribbon glide out from under the bed. It was a fer de lance, the deadliest snake on Martinique. With a cry, Hippolyte burst from hiding and cut the serpent in half. Instantly, its pieces vanished. Clement and Paulina, who had not seen the snake, began to shout at Hippolyte, while Monsieur de Force and the guests forced open the door. All were astonished to find Hippolyte, cutlass in hand, while no trace of danger remained. Then Monsieur Zobecat, furious that his plot had failed, cried, "Hippolyte is jealous of his friend's happiness. The sword in his hands is proof that he meant them harm." At first, Clement and Pauline and Monsieur de Force would not believe this, but Hippolyte's refusal to explain his actions angered them. Finally, Clement ordered Hippolyte out of his house. Seeing the coldness in his friend's eyes, Hippolyte desperately began to tell his story. All the while, Monsieur Zobecat accused him of saying, "You are a liar and an assassin." When Hippolyte told about the zombies and the poisoned water, he turned to stone up to his knees. "Say no more," cried Clement. Anxious that Clement know the whole truth, Hippolyte explained about the deadly fruit, so he became stone up to his chest. "Not another word," begged Pauline, clutching his hand. She shivered at the feel of his hard, cold stone. Finally, Hippolyte told about the serpent. Instantly, he turned to stone to the very top of his head. "Oh, my poor friend," shouted Clement. "I would give anything to restore you to life." Suddenly, an old man stepped from the crowd. "I can bring him back to life," he said to Clement, "if you will take this curse upon yourself." "Yes," Clement answered. "I already owe him my life 3 times over." Then he bravely hugged Pauline. The old man passed his hand 3 times over the head of the statue, then blew gently into the stone's face. Watch out, bud. Hippolyte became a living person once more. Then the stranger turned toward Clement and Pauline and the others, as the others looked on in horror. But Montserrat Zobecat leaned forward eagerly. The old man made as if to touch Clement, but instead his outstretched finger suddenly touched Monsieur Zobecat's forehead. The man instantly became a stone figure. "Your willingness to sacrifice your life for your friend gave me the power to break the spell," the stranger said to Clement. "But a curse only ends when returned to its source." While the friends exchanged a heartfelt embrace, the old man said, "I was the beggar you gave a Christian burial to on your way to Macuba. Bon Dieu, the good Lord, gave me permission to come to earth and do you this service in return." The next moment, he vanished. After this, Clement and Pauline lived happily together. Hippolyte fell in love and married too, and the children of both couples grew up as close as brothers and sisters. The statue that had been Monsieur Zobecat was placed in a corner of the garden, where it soon crumbled into dust. And that's the end. All right. So if you like that one, vote for The Faithful Friend. I know it's a little bit longer of a book, but it's a great story. Could provoke lots of good discussion about good karma and things like that. All right. So next one is Whoosh, the Lonnie Johnson Super Soaking Stream of Invention. Excuse me. This one's written by Chris Barton and is also an AR book. So if you have not taken the AR quiz on that, there's the quiz number, and you may take that quiz to get those points. All right, let me get this situated here. All right, here we go. Every day brought a challenge for young Lonnie Johnson. The challenge of finding space for his stuff. 6 Johnson kids were squeezed into their parents' small house in Mobile, Alabama. Lonnie would have loved a workshop of his own, but there just wasn't room. There was nowhere to keep his rocket kits, his bamboo shooters, rubber band guns, erector set, go-kart engine, bolts and screws, and other spare parts his dad let him bring home from the shed, and various other things he had hauled back from the junkyard. Lonnie loved building and creating. Ideas for inventions just kept on flowing. He learned how to make rockets from scratch. Kids at school gathered to watch Lonnie launch them. And he learned how to make rocket fuel. When it caught fire in the kitchen, Lonnie's mom didn't make him stop. She just sent him to work outside. Lonnie wanted to spend his life designing things, building things, and getting them to work. He wanted to be an engineer. However, Lonnie took an exam that said he would not make a very good one. His dream had been challenged. Lonnie was discouraged, but he knew that whoever had graded his tests hadn't met Linux. Inspired by a TV show, Lonnie had built his own robot. He made it out of scrap metal and named it Linux. Compressed air cylinders and valves allowed Linux body to turn and its arms to move. The switches came from an old broken jukebox. Lonnie used a tape recorder to program Linux, and as a bonus, the reels looked like eyes. Lonnie wanted to enter his creation in a science fair, but he couldn't get the transmitter to work. Without it, Lonnie couldn't send commands to Linux. Science fairs came and went. Lonnie missed one, then another, until he got an idea. Now, Lonnie may or may not have asked before he borrowed his little sister's walkie-talkie. But it fixed the transmission issue. His high school team took freshly finished Linux to a 1968 science fair at the University of Alabama, where only 5 years earlier, African-American students hadn't even been allowed. Having to compete in a place that still wasn't very welcoming. Now, that was a challenge with a capital C. Against other schools from all over the state, Lonnie's team won first place. Soon, Lonnie left home to go to college at Tuskegee Institute, where he stood out as a self-confident, insightful, creative thinker. He stood out as a student who asked the right questions, precisely defined problems, and formulated solutions. And he stood out as the guy who built his own booming sound system out of a cast-off electronics. It even had lights that flashed in sync with the beat. Lonnie sometimes studied right in the middle of his own parties. The extra studying paid off. He became an engineer after graduation, and that took him beyond Alabama, way beyond. When NASA was sending an orbiter and probe called Galileo to Jupiter, the space agency needed to ensure the constant supply of power to the orbiter's computer memory. The engineer who had to figure out how to do this was Lonnie. His challenge was to come up with a lightweight backup system able to keep essential functions going in case the main power was lost. It wasn't easy. It wasn't obvious. But Lonnie found a solution. Some at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory doubted his idea would work. Lonnie convinced them that it would. He was right. As it photographed Jupiter and its moons, Galileo was supported by the power package that Lonnie had designed. Much of what we know about Jupiter could have been at risk in a power failure if not for Lonnie. Ideas for other problems to solve just kept on flowing. They flowed whether Lonnie was working with hundreds of people at NASA or up late tinkering with his own inventions in, finally, his own workshop. Lonnie knew the world's millions of refrigerators and air conditioners needed a new cooling system, one that didn't use R12, a chemical that was bad for the environment. He had an idea for using water and air pressure instead. To test his idea, he made a pump and nozzle, connected them to the bathroom faucet, turned on the pump, and then whoosh! The stream that blasted across the bathroom was so powerful, it created a curtain-swirling breeze. It also gave Lonnie an idea for yet another invention. This, he thought, would make a great water gun. First, he had to find or make the parts, including a pump small enough for a child to handle. Then he had to glue the parts together into a prototype, an early version with room for improvement. Finally, Lonnie tested his strange-looking squirt gun at a picnic. "Does it really work?" a man asked. "Sure," Lonnie said. "Want to see?" Lonnie worked the pump, which squeezed the air into the chamber. When he pulled the trigger, the air escaped, forcing the water out with a whoosh. For a water battle to be a fair fight, there couldn't be just one of Lonnie's water guns. He helped making more. So he went to toy company after toy company after toy company. The word no flowed again and again. But finally, one company said yes. It planned to make his water gun. Lonnie also had other projects, a water-propelled toy airplane, 2 kinds of engines, and his cooling system. He found investors to provide the money for turning his ideas into products people could buy. He made a leap of faith, quit his job, and devoted himself to a full-time inventing. But soon, each plan fell apart, even the one for the water gun. These things sometimes happen, but when they happen one after another to the same person, well, that's some pretty bad luck. Lonnie didn't have a job. He didn't have the money he'd been counting on. He and his family had to move out of their home and into a little apartment. He was angry and scared. But Lonnie had dealt with challenges all his life. He knew a lot about solving problems, and he still believed in his invention, especially the water gun. Lonnie went looking for another toy company. In 1989, he found a toy maker who was interested in seeing the water gun if Lonnie ever happened to be in Philadelphia. "But don't make a special trip," the guy said. Lonnie made a special trip. In his wife's suitcase, he carried a new prototype. He unpacked it, filled the tank with water, pumped the gun until the air pressure was good and high, and What do you think? Whoosh. Wow, the people said. Kids everywhere agreed with that wow. Lonnie's water gun, called the Super Soaker, became a smash hit. In no time, there were Super Soakers in backyards and on beaches, in parks, and on playgrounds. Each sale of a Super Soaker put a little money into Lonnie's pocket. All of those hours, all of those years that Lonnie spent in his workshop had paid off big time. Now he could afford to do just about anything he wanted. So what did Lonnie do? He got a bigger workshop, which is where you'll find him today, because facing challenges, solving problems, and building things are what Lonnie Johnson loves to do, and his ideas just keep on flowing. All right, that's the end. So again, you need to vote. Please vote on which book you want to advance to the Final Four. The Faithful Friend or Whoosh. So please vote in the comments, and then tomorrow's video will reveal all of the winners. So again, you can go to my other videos and you can still vote for Bad Case of Stripes versus Nothing Ever Happens on 90th Street. Bad Case of Stripes has a pretty good lead right now. Salt in His Shoes and These Hands. Again, you can still vote on that. Salt in His Shoes does have a pretty good lead in that one as well. And this one at the bottom is our close one. We have Game Day and The Babe and I. These are very close. Game Day is in the lead right now after tallying my votes, but The Babe and I are only like one vote behind. So you can make a difference in this one still. And then again, today's book, or books, I should say, The Faithful Friend and Whoosh. We definitely need you to go and vote on those since those are the last video of round 2. And again, all 4 winners will be announced tomorrow, and we will begin our Final Four matchup. So we have 1, 2, and then the championship book, only 3 more videos to go until our March Madness of Picture Book series is over. So again, thanks for watching, and go vote. Mr. A signing off. Thanks, guys.